All right, Matthew, so glad you've decided to join us for this interview to talk about your experience as an entrepreneur. And I'll start by us taking it as far back as you can remember. And I'll ask you this: what was the thrust or the idea or what led you to go into business? Everybody has a different set of circumstances that forms the thrust for them to take an entrepreneurial route in life as opposed to an employment route. What drove you to entrepreneurship?
Thank you for having me here. Entrepreneur is a big fancy word. I just know that we had to hustle to survive. We had to work, and hard work is a beautiful thing. As long as I can remember, if you want to use a fancy word, entrepreneur, I remember picking guineas, and I would sell them to a lady that have a tree, and she would take them from us and stretch them out. She buy one bunch for me for $2, and she get three little bunch to sell each bunch for $3. So as long as I can remember, we didn't grow up really financially stable. We grew up challenging times, not having enough. I remember going to PM school and selling pastries out of my bag at lunchtime, a little brown paper bag, selling pastries every lunchtime. You know, it's always been entrepreneurial, right, per se, but just work and have to survive. And when you don't have a structure to support you, you have to make ends meet anyhow you can. And that's how I started out my entrepreneurial journey. 20, oh boy, exposing my age now, but I've been probably been self-employed now for 23 years, 24 years. I haven't worked for anybody.
Wow.
Yep.
Incredible. Now, for many entrepreneurs, the business that they find success in isn't necessarily the first business that they would have started. What was your path like? Is Dadley Designs, of course, is it your main business operation, at least as far as I know. But did it start with Dadley Designs, or was Dadley Designs in the form that it currently is back then? How did it evolve, if at all,
Oh
a
boy,
major evolution took
again boy,
place?
showing my age. So I started out, and a lot of people out there, us older people, will remember Noise Clothing, where again, because of financial constraints, um, I liked fashion, but I didn't have the finance to finance my fashion. So I began drawing styles and patterns. I remember doing pants with 4 pockets, two at the bottom and two at the top, Bigfoot pants and drawstring pants, and carry them to a tailor. And he would sew them for me, and I would sell them and make a marginal markup. And eventually I learned to sew myself. And I started out with Noise Clothing Company. You probably so young, but Noise Clothing Company, I have represented Antigua in regional fashion shows and won. I've been to Trinidad, I've been to Nevis, I've been front page radio stations all over here in Antigua. I've been featured here even from the age of 18 doing fashion shows and fashion shows in schools. I had my own modeling group. So I've been designing, sewing clothes, fashion shows around Antigua for many, many, many years. Started off in that vein with fabric and stuff. And then for a period, I was a tailor. I was sewing uniforms for Caribbean Star. I was sewing a flight trainer just to buy buttons. I was a fashion designer, t-shirt designer, graphic artist, that type of thing. And that kind of morphed into t-shirt printing, and then computerized embroidery, and just working for myself, loving to work with my hands, artistic in nature, and just utilize whatever do. It's been a crazy journey though. I mean, we don't have time on this episode, but I mean, just the journey of evolving.
All right. So, what would you say was that breakthrough moment for your business, where you went from being, let's say, a sole trader to more of a business operation with employees? I guess more expensive equipment, and the full works.
I don't think there was a point. I know there was a season in my business where I kept reinvesting into my business. So as a young person, I think I was married as yet, I didn't have any children. I kept reinvesting into my business. If I were to think of there's something, that this generation in terms of entrepreneurs and business people need to learn is patience. You don't, doesn't happen, well, for most of us, or even for me, it doesn't happen overnight. It is patience, it's painstaking, it's sacrificial. I used to ride my bicycle, like, I remember the man used to grind me and say I'm the bicycle businessman. Because when other people were buying cars, I was investing even in this structure and this property here. I was investing in equipment because I had a dream that, and I knew what I wanted. But the sacrifice that it took to get here, sometimes we want to fast forward the VCR and get to the end. But my story was painstaking and patient, and I just know for many, many years, no profit. Hands to mouth and scarcely that, but just believing that if I kept investing, sowing and reaping, one day I would reap, and my business could take care of me after all the sacrifice I had made for it. So I can't say at a particular point where there's a point where the business started to make a profit. And I think that was even a few years ago. After all the 20 years of putting in, there comes a point where I remember there was a time when my business every month we were in overdraft. Every month for years in overdraft. I know nobody wanted to hear that, but that was the reality. But with faith and patience and hard work, you get over the hump and you begin to see something positive on the bank account. And that's my story here,
When do you determine how far, you mentioned about your business being in overdraft for months, for
years.
How do you determine at what point do you determine, hey, look, this isn't working, maybe I need to close the doors? I mean, I know that wasn't your were you ever at that point? And then how, for an entrepreneur outside watching and listening, because you don't want to be, as they say, beating a dead horse, right? There has to be some point where you make a hard and fast decision. Do I go on with this, or do I end this operation?
I've been tempted, especially in the valley moments. I've been tempted to throw in the towel and go get an 8 to 5. You understand? The temptation is there, but you have to wait, and the freedom and the liberty. And to me, I'm so cognizant. I'm in my 40s now. I can't believe I just blink. I want to live my life doing something I love, and I love what I do. I love creating designs. I love satisfying customers when they bring a sketch and a paper, and we develop logos for them and we print their shirts. I love to see the smile. I like, and by virtue of this business, it's not monotonous. Monotony would drive me crazy. That's why I stopped sewing, because every day sewing pants is profitable, but it's just so boring. Nothing else to learn. No new challenges. So one pant is 1 million pants. Here, every day, somebody walking with some design, something, and I have to say, look, I have customers that come here all the time and they say, hey, this can't be printed. I've been to 4 or 5 screen printers in Antigua and they say that this can't be done. And I just smile because I know we can print it. I go to trade shows, I study stuff online, I do always pushing myself with technology. But at the end of the day, I really do love coming to work. All right, it's not, I don't have to drag my body to work. There are some days better than some, but truthfully, I love what I do. I love the challenge, I love the interaction. And as I'm getting older now too, I also love the freedom. As you know, I'm a amateur pastor, but even in February this year, I was preaching in Guadeloupe, ministry, Guadeloupe, St. Thomas, St. Croix. I could pop out because I run my own business. If I was working for a company, I'm sure they'd be so gracious with me, So there are pluses, but I would say this, to be truthful, and you alluded to it, there comes a point, even though I wasn't seeing much money, I was seeing progress. So I wasn't seeing any money in the bank, but I was seeing assets build up. Somebody say, where the money? I said, this building here, I don't own nobody for it, it's my building. So even though I don't have money in the bank, I can show you a building. These machines here are quite expensive. I own all of them. So even though I was not seeing dollar signs on the bank to make the bank teller smile, I had assets and I saw progress. There's a point where I was totally debt free, you know, before mortgage. But, you know, I didn't owe anybody for anything. And I was, even though I didn't have the money, I could look back and say, there's my money. I have 2 children, I have 2 children too. So I look and I say, look, well, you have no money, man, pick me your money, right? So to me, but if you're not seeing progress, and you're not seeing money, and you're not seeing no growth, then I think you need to have a serious talk, look in the mirror and say, look, you know, perhaps this is not what I should be doing. And even with that, it's so funny because I'm thinking about great men who pioneered, who almost gave up. You know, I think if I'm not mistaken, the 2 men that invented the X-ray machine, one of them committed suicide. He literally threw in the towel with life. He just couldn't take it. He lost family, he just took his own life. A few months later, a few weeks later, the breakthrough that they were looking for, they made it. So I don't know when to throw in the towel, but I think realistically, there must come a point too that you say, hey, I've invested so many years, I'm still not seeing any fruit. Maybe I need to consider a different crop.
All right. Well, we're staying with the more mental health side of things, because I imagine that it can be very taxing on someone's mental health, entrepreneur in particular. So how do you deal with, for example, in the fact that in Caribbean societies, a lot of times, especially the older folks, they believe in your 9 to 5, your 8 to 5, as the case might be. And if, for example, you as a young person decide to take an entrepreneurial route, you will have the naysayers. You're saying, oh, he's lazy, he can't hold down a job. I don't know if you experienced that, but what would be your advice for dealing with those sort of negative reactions in a society that perhaps, as example and anecdotally, we can say may not value entrepreneurship as much as it does your typical, 9 to 5 day job?
I can give you a little of what I thought. I was young, I had no children, and I thought to myself, what am I going to tell my grandchildren? And I would rather tell them I did something. I stepped out, I took a chance. I have several subjects and all that. I could have gone different routes. But I said, look, let me take a risk now. And if I fail, I fail. But I live with myself knowing that I took a risk. And I could sit down here, if God would bless me to have grandchildren, and tell my grandchildren, I started my own business. I gave it my best. It didn't really work out, but I gave it the best. And that make for a more exciting story than to tell them, I had a great idea, but I never did it. That's not big and fancy. I have never, when I used to have Noise Clothing Company, I remember a friend, quote unquote, a friend that said to me, Nice, I don't want nobody embarrass you, me, your friend. Nobody now ever buy no clothes from you.
Oh boy.
He said, man, look, I just looking out for you and I just care about you and don't embarrass yourself. Nobody will ever buy clothes from you.
Wow.
And I remember the day, shout out to Shalita and Marketing Machine. She used to work with me in the store selling clothes. And we used to, I remember like on a Christmas Eve, literally no exaggeration, Noise skirts were the thing. If you weren't wearing a Noise skirt, you weren't wearing nothing, so a little short skirt with some little slit at the side, a little tag that says Noise. And on Christmas Eve night, one guy said he sat down in a corner and counted hundreds of them past him. We used to bring them to the store, especially on a Christmas Eve night. And we could even put them on the rack. We just drop the box and we might go through the box and scavenge them out. And that's to show you like how much momentum the clothing line was getting.
Yes.
And I remember that same guy walked into my store and said, I want a shirt and a pant, what kind of price you can give me? And he's the same man that said to me, nobody would ever buy clothes from me, right? Even now, maybe 20-something years later, people still meet me up to last week. Say, man, I have a suit home that you sold now. That thing like he can't do, and the best fit. Woman met me in the AP the other day and tell me, Nice. I told her I don't sew anymore. She said, what? The best fitting pant I ever get in my life. Where me it up so? Big nice in APOE, right? You're gonna always have naysayers. You're gonna always have. I laugh. My sermon yesterday was taken. Jesus asked them, "Who do men say that I am?" And the disciples said, "Some said John the Baptist, some say Elijah, some say." But my message yesterday was called "Some Say." You're gonna always have some that say. You're gonna always have some that tell you, "Don't ever do it because you're gonna embarrass yourself." It's, and sometimes I think people have wasted their life, and or it may even come from a genuine place of wanting the best for you, but at the same time, no risk, no reward. It's one life you have to live. I'd rather live with giving it my best and failing than living in wonderland, always wondering what would have happened. And imagine you have a great idea, you don't do it, and somebody come from outside these shores and implement something that you dream about and make it big, and you say, "Boy, that could have been me." But using a Bible term, you stayed in the safety of the boat. You didn't want to walk out on the water.
Yeah.
It's a challenge, but and my faith in God helps me a lot too along the years. He really has helped me to trust Him. People are fickle. People even care about you, even at the church. People want to see you safe. But if you would hear Him call you to step out, walk on water, man. You think, walk on water. You can tell that story to your grandchildren. I walked on water. I ran a business. You know what I mean? It's more exciting than I went to work 9 to 5. The safety of the boat. And even in COVID, we're realizing the safety of the boat is not so safe. We have watched empires fall here. We have watched companies and corporations that were so safe, and we watched them fall.
I'll ask you the next question. Funding. That's an area that a lot of small business individuals, entrepreneurs, that's the area that locals, challenges that we face as local entrepreneurs. That's the area that we find a lot of difficulty in. I don't know what funding and financing avenues were available to you in your time, but what's your advice to upcoming businesses, small businesses that might not have access to the financial facilities that I guess more larger established enterprises would have? What's your story?
I'm listening to you think. I'm listening to you talk, and I'm thinking, it's like you come out of school and you want a job, and every place you go say you need to have experience, and you ask yourself the question, how am I to get experience if you don't give me the job?
Sure.
And it's like a catch-22. I had so many difficulties with the bank because even now, and I don't claim to have all the answers, but even now I laugh. I said, my staff here can go to a bank with a job letter that I sign saying they work here, and they get a loan like that. If I want a loan here, 3 years financials gone by, 10-year projection going forward, same amount of money, right? I just write a paper. John Mark work here for the last 2 years for X amount a week. He walk in, gone. The same man that pay him walk in and say, I want a loan for the same amount. We need to see 2 years gone by, financials, you see 10 years projection before we give you a loan. And it is perplexing, it is challenging, it's frustrating.
What hacks can you share with us?
What hacks?
Yeah. For beating the system, getting through.
I say, I don't want to put on a mask up and go in and, that's. But again, it's just perseverance.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the things that helped me was the fact that my wife works. So when we approach to get a loan as a corporate entity, as husband and wife,
yes,
there is the stability of her 9 to 5. And even with that, I find sometimes, I'm trying to find a good adjective for television, I find it ridiculous. Because you will see the business generating this amount of money and has been doing so for a while. But somebody is working for this amount of money. But you put more faith in this person in an environment where companies fall, in an environment, they didn't work in here. But you know what I mean? And I don't want to be naive to the challenges of the bank, but it's as if to me the bank don't want to take no risk There is no life without risk, right? And I could share one or two stories where banks have turned, one bank they turned myself and my wife down for a particular loan. And then when we got the loan from another institution and doing well, they call, can we get that loan over here? I said, you're crazy. Get a loan over here. You didn't want to take the risk in us, but then you want to reap the reward after. There must be a provision for risk in any lending institution.
Yes.
And without that vehicle, you know, I don't know the provision, and I don't know if the government should get involved. I understand there's some kind of fund, but then how do you get it? How do you qualify? Who knows? I don't know. But that is one of the most frustrating elements of being an entrepreneur. And what I think, not a politician, but what I think perhaps should happen, artists are not, I think I'm a pretty good pastor, but I'm a very bad plumber. Because I'm good in one area doesn't automatically mean I'm good in another. Bad analogy, but best I can come up with,
Yes.
right? You can be an entrepreneur, photographer, videographer, but that doesn't mean you're a good accountant. Look at, analyze strengths and weaknesses, SWOT, and recognize, boss, you have great strengths, great passion, great entrepreneurship, great vision, great art, but the reality is you don't keep good books, and you're horrible with figures. You get somebody else. Let me provide, after analyzing you, here is what you have going for you, here are your weaknesses. Let me now connect you to the resources that can get you over the hump.
So you're speaking about a sort of business coach or advisor?
First of all, an analyzer. To analyze your strengths, the opportunities, the markets, and say, boss, you pivoted right now to really, there's a great demand for you. But guess what? In order for it to be long-term, and that's a whole different thought process I have, sustainability. We as a Caribbean, as a nation, don't seem to really think a lot about continuity and sustainability. So we do things and we build things, but we don't put the thought into sustaining it even generationally. It's just temporal. So we build it and we don't think about the fact we're going to have to maintain it. And then there's no thought into the maintaining it, then it breaks down. Then you have to, so just the infrastructure is in place. In the Bible would say, old men teach the younger men. Old women teach somebody who has gone before us. I can say, let me hold your hand to avoid some of the potholes. I think I'd be further along if I had somebody to hold my hand. And somebody to hold my hand, not to extort me either. I remember this one, I remember coming from Miami, I think, on a plane. And this man says to me, man, 50% of your business and I'll make it bloom. A little young man, you know, and he said, and he gives me this other businessman said to me, out of owning 10% of $1 million or 100% of $100, which one you think is better? He wanted to buy into me, but understand that I would have 10% of a bigger corporation versus 100% of nothing that happening. And you find that it's not so much a leg up or a pull up. It is almost an extortionate thinking. I will help you. I will finance you if need be. But the majority is going to be me. And I think that stimulus, that encouraging somebody that can say, let me walk you through, knowing that we as a society will be better. I have made it already. I have navigated through potholes. Let me give you some do's and don'ts. We don't, and I'm getting philosophical, but perhaps the fatherlessness that we have in our homes has transcended even over into business, where we don't have fathers to father us in a business standpoint, entrepreneurially, to say, bro, let me tell you what to do. So with a home without a father, I am pioneering, trying to be a father, having never seen one model before me. I am an entrepreneur, trying to be an entrepreneur in a society of persons who work 9 to 5.
Wow, powerful.
Very hard, and you're bound to make terrible mistakes. And I think we need not extortioners to milk our gifts, but helping hand to say, man, I'll help you. And there's very few and far between. And I know the frustration
Wow.
firsthand. Terrible.
Yeah, so we spoke earlier, you mentioned about your passion for fashion, working with fabric and this field that you're in. And I think a difficulty and a challenge that a lot of entrepreneurs find, and perhaps a pitfall as well, is it's very easy for anyone to get led away by their passion. But sometimes your passion doesn't always present a realistic opportunity for you to live by, all right? So how do you balance that? Passion versus realistic business opportunity. Talk a bit about that.
I call it heart and head. Heart speak of passion, head speak of logic. And I think for a lot, especially artistic people, there's a tremendous battle between your heart and your head. Your heart wants to do this, but your head tell you, AP is going to send you a love letter this weekend. So how do you now balance your heart and your head? And it's a delicate balancing act. So passion versus logic. My faith, boy, I mean, I'm going to pray a lot and try to make the right decision, especially as a young, especially in my youth. I have children now, thank God. My time is not bad now because I don't know if I would have done some of the things I did then if I had the responsibility. Because if I were to suffer, let me suffer, but I would not want my family to suffer because of my risks. So I think maybe that's why I started so young, and I look back and I thank God for it then, because I wouldn't have made some of those risks now. And that balancing act between heart and head is it's a thin rope to walk on. But I'll say this too, just to be frank, I believe very much in being flexible. I look at my life, and even in light of COVID and so now, I am flexible, brother. I mean, I have a logical side to me. I've been sewing masks. I haven't sewn in maybe 16 years. I put down my sewing machine. But the reality is that school fee have to pay. So if it means I have to sit back on my sewing machine, we've been doing a lot of masks, reasonable amount of masks. And if I have to do that logically to keep the bills on, I just shift into a logical mode, because the realities of life are there. Sometimes artists, creators don't have that flexibility mentally to understand that you have to do what it takes, even for a season. God asked Moses, what do you have in your hand? This, a stick, a piece of tick, a stick. Sometimes what's in your heart, you have to use what's in your hand to get you to what's in your heart. Understanding that this is not what I really want, but I can use this to accomplish something down the road. And I think that that level of aggressiveness, or that level of flexibility, knowing that this is not going to be my end all, but if I have to, the Apostle Paul in the Bible built tents. Imagine a man that have a heart and a passion to change the world, having to do the monotony every day of tying knots. But he understood, this is what's in my hand. For this season, I'll do what's in my hand, understanding that this will get me one day to accomplish what's in my heart. And that, again, if you had mentors and you had pioneers to say, bro, just, if for this season, you got to do what you got to do logically. But at the same time, you keep investing in your dream, understanding that one day it's going to work for you.
And I suppose that we can add to that same principle, that sometimes you have to work that 9 to 5 for a season to get you to what's in your heart.
In your heart.
Which is your business.
And do it to your best.
Correct.
Everything I do now, we do t-shirt printing, computer embroidery, we do graphics, we do vinyl. All of these things that I do, I learned them while working a 9 to 5.
Absolutely.
And I took the job and some horrid conditions, horrid advantage, but I did it not realizing that one day these things would turn around and feed me and my family.
Yes.
So again, there was something called delayed gratification. And that's a message that this generation don't want to hear. We live in a microwave age. I laugh, you know, and we serve a coal pot God who slow cooks and turns the fire down. But we want it now. It's my cash, J.G. Wentworth, and I want it now. It doesn't work like that. If you're willing to do your 9 to 5 and come home and put in an hour on the sewing machine, if that's what you love, or sleepless nights to get you to where you are until you can look at 9 to 5 and say, thank you so much, but I now have enough base, enough clientele to branch off. But we don't want that. To some extent, we want it, and we want it now, and we don't want to put in the overtime, and we want it given to us, entitlement on a plate. And life does not work like that long term.
As we wrap up our conversation, I mean, I'll just recap a few nuggets that I would have gotten from what you said. The first is invest in assets. Don't bother with the naysayers and be persistent. And of course, delayed gratification. What else would you add to that?
For me, if you were to ask me what has helped me, and I've been blessed to see people come here who have known me as a child growing up, knew the conditions we were growing up in, walk through this door and say, oh my God, nice, you know, you come a long, long way. And I look around, some they say, yeah, not too bad. And I say, yeah, boy, because they would remember, even when they left to migrate to the US, how I was living then, to in my own home and still paying bank, to driving a vehicle, to having staff, and man, they're blown away. And without no great business plan, no hand up, nobody propelling me, but God has always been there. So my tip to young people, you know, really genuinely, you know, foster a relationship with the living God that has made heaven and earth. And if He say yes, nobody else can say no. And even that gifting that's in you, it was placed in there by Him. And I dare say for Him. So He didn't put it in there to frustrate you. He didn't give you that talent for you to just feel like if it's being wasted. But if you plug back into Him, He would make a way. He will open a door for you and to fulfill this very short thing named life. So I really genuinely, practically can say that's one tip I would encourage for long-term success. Sustainability, again, a big thing for me. Yeah. Not just anybody can, and the older you get, you see companies spring up whatever way. People would test is over time. Decisions are weighed and validated in time. And when you can look at something that's been sustainable and going on for decades, and you say, boy, this is what you want, what I want. I want my children to grow up and business still be flourishing, God willing, 20 years from now, sustained, that they can come and take the helm if that's so that they desire. Not just a bunch of big, and as they say in the Caribbean, flap tomorrow. You know, that's what continuity.
Right. Yeah. Matthew, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate the insight and the advice and your story and your experiences, and I'm sure it would be of great benefit to our viewers here.
I hope so.
With Adley Startup.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Stay with us. We have more when we get back from the break.